My name is Bryn Mercer. I am 30 years old. I live alone in a one-bedroom condo in downtown Raleigh. And I found out what my parents really thought of me from a desk phone in the IT director's office of a regional healthcare network on a Monday afternoon in May. The call lasted 4 minutes and 11 seconds. My mother said one sentence, and my sister Caitlin said another sentence underneath it. And those 2 sentences are the reason you are here. Brynja. Sweetheart, Caitlin and Tyler think it would be best if you stayed home this trip. You can keep an eye on the house. You don't have kids of your own. You wouldn't really fit in. That's what you're good for. And Caitlin in the background. On speakerphone. In the casual, entitled voice my sister has used since the 3rd grade. Bryn, can you also handle the Amazon deliveries and water the plants? You're literally so good at all that stuff. My family had been planning a Disney World vacation for 11 people for 8 months. 3 days before the flight. I was being told I had been recategorized from passenger to house sitter. The vacation had been booked on my American Express. The hotel had been booked on my American Express. 11 Disney World multi-day passes had been booked on my American Express. The travel insurance was in my name. The Marriott Rewards account was in my name. The Southwest Companion Pass was in my name, and my mother had just told me, in a voice that was warm at the start and turning impatient at the end, that I would not be on the plane. I smiled at my office wall. I said, "Of course, Mom, whatever the family needs." And I hung up. What I did in the next 90 seconds on my laptop ended 7 years and $213,000. And that isn't even the part that broke them. The part that broke them came 47 hours later. When my grandfather Walt drove his 1998 Lincoln Town car from Pinehurst to my condo in Raleigh, carrying a leather portfolio my grandmother Margaret had put together the year before she died. He sat on my couch and he opened the portfolio, and what he laid on my coffee table rewrote the history of my family for the previous 20 years. Welcome to Quiet Reckoning, the channel where dependable people finally close the account. If anyone has ever told you that you were so flexible or so good at staying behind, this story is for you. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. And tell me the role you were quietly assigned in your family without ever being asked. Subscribe, because the part with my grandfather is the part that nobody, including me, saw coming. I want to tell you about the call. I was at my desk in the IT director's corner office of WakeMed Health and Hospital's downtown administrative building, eating a sad chicken Caesar wrap from the cafeteria, when my mother's name lit up on my desk phone. I picked it up on the second ring. I had not yet learned that the wisest thing I could do, when my mother called during a workday, was to let it go to voicemail. Brynja. Sweet pea. Do you have a minute? My mother's voice was warm the way she gets in the first 60 seconds of any call, where she is about to ask me for something I will not want to give. I said I had a minute. I had a database migration in progress on my secondary monitor, and I was actually mid-meeting. But I told her I had a minute, because that was the rule. Sweetheart, I just wanted to talk to you about Disney. My ribcage tightened in a way I did not yet recognize as a warning. Caitlin and Tyler had a long talk last night with your father and me. About the trip. About the dynamics. And we all agreed. And Caitlin really wanted me to be the one to tell you because she was worried it would hurt your feelings, that it would just be easier if you stayed back this time. I set down my Caesar wrap. I said, very carefully, Mom, I booked the trip. My name is on the reservations. The credit card is mine. Yes. Honey. Of course. And we are so grateful. So grateful. But Caitlin and Tyler think the kids are going to be a real handful. Aiden is going through this phase where he just won't listen. And Hayden has been having those meltdowns. And Charlotte is still in diapers. And it's going to be such a kid-focused vacation. We just need it to be a real family vacation. You wouldn't really fit in. You don't have kids of your own. And then she said it. The sentence, the one she had probably already practiced in the kitchen of the house I had paid the property taxes on for the last 7 years. You can stay home and watch the house. Sweetie, that's what you're good for. And then, like a small, cruel chorus from offstage, Caitlin's voice from somewhere on the kitchen speakerphone in Apex. Bryn, can you also handle the Amazon deliveries and water the plants? You're literally so good at all that stuff. You should know who I was before that phone call. Because it explains why my family treated me the way a household treats the spare key. I grew up in a 3-bedroom split level in Apex, a small town outside Raleigh that I used to tell my college friends had a population somewhere between Sad and Sundays. My father, Glenn, was a regional manager for a janitorial supply distributor. My mother, Roxanne, was a part-time receptionist at a chiropractor's office. My younger brother, Garrett, was the planned middle. My younger sister, Caitlin, 3 years behind me, was the pretty one. I was the surprise and the responsible one. The way surprises sometimes become. Because there is no slot waiting for you, and you have to earn one. I worked the front register at a Food Lion through high school. I did all my own college applications on a school library computer because my parents did not have a home computer until I bought them one with my second paycheck out of college. I scholarshiped my way through NC State on a combination of academic merit, a Pell Grant, and 40 hours a week at a campus IT help desk. By 26, I was a senior systems administrator. By 28, I was running a team of 9. By 29, I was the IT director of a healthcare network with 3,700 employees and the only person under 35 in the executive suite. I read database logs for a living. Databases do not lie to your face. They simply record what happened, which is more than I could say for some people. I had been single most of my adult life, 2 long relationships, both with men who had wanted me to want children sooner than I had, both ending without drama on Sunday afternoons over coffee. My last relationship had ended at 28. I had not dated seriously since I lived alone in a 1-bedroom condo in the Glenwood South neighborhood of downtown Raleigh, with one black cat named Mason who hated everyone but me. And I had been told, by my mother, by my sister, and by every aunt and cousin at every family gathering for the last 6 years, that I had so much time still and that Caitlin really needed support more because Caitlin has 3 kids and you have so much flexibility. Honey, that flexibility had a price tag. For 7 years, I had been sending my parents $1,500 a month. The first transfer had gone out the month I was promoted to senior systems administrator at 26. My mother had called me crying on a Sunday night about how my father was being moved to part-time at the supply company and they were going to lose the house if someone didn't help with the mortgage. And I had set up an automatic transfer the next morning. $1,500 on the first of every month, for 84 months. $126,000. Gone out of my paycheck, one quiet automated transfer at a time. I had never said the number out loud. I had never let myself add it up. I had told myself it was for the mortgage, and my mother's anxiety medication, and my father's blood pressure prescriptions, and the general gap between 2 part-time salaries and a real life. I had told myself I was the only one steady enough to carry it, and being the steady one had become its own kind of identity. The other money was harder to see because it was disguised as joy. For 7 years, I had paid for every Mercer family vacation. The Outer Banks Beach Week in 2018. The Smoky Mountains Cabin in 2019. The Disney Cruise in 2020. Yes. Disney. My mother had insisted on Disney even during a pandemic. The Charleston trip in 2021 for my parents' anniversary. The all-inclusive in Punta Cana in 2022, which had been Caitlin's idea. The Universal Studios trip in 2023 for the older grandkids. And now the 11-person Disney World vacation in May 2025. which had been planned for 8 months, and which my American Express had been quietly funding in installments since October. I had never sent the family a bill. I had told myself that family vacations were a gift. The kind of gift you give because you can afford it, and they cannot. I had told myself it made me happy to see Aiden ride Dumbo for the first time. I had told myself I was not buying anyone's love. I am telling you all of this now, so you understand. I was not naive. I was responsible to the point of self-erasure. There is a difference. And on that Monday afternoon at my desk in WakeMed's downtown building, with a half-eaten Caesar wrap going warm in front of me, and my mother's voice telling me I would be staying home with the cat, I finally learned what the difference was. I want you to picture what I did next. Because there was no shouting in it. There was no shaking. I did not even close my office door. I told my mother I had to get back to a meeting. I said, of course. Mom. Whatever the family needs. I hung up the desk phone. I sat for 30 seconds and watched the second hand on the wall clock above my filing cabinet. Then I opened my laptop. The first thing I did was not revenge. The first thing I did was solve the actual problem. Because that is what I do. With my right hand, I logged into the American Express portal. With my left hand, I pulled up the family Disney trip reservation summary I had emailed myself in February. The summary listed every booking number, every hotel confirmation, every flight record locator, and every Disney World ticket barcode. There were 11 bookings under 5 different account types. All of them ran through one card ending in 4,477, the platinum card with the rewards points I had been quietly accumulating to surprise my parents with their 30th anniversary trip to Europe in 2026, a plan I had not yet told anyone about. I clicked on account settings. I clicked on authorized users. There were 4 names on the card. My mother, my father, my sister Caitlin, and my brother-in-law Tyler. They had all been added at my mother's request over the previous 5 years for what she had called family convenience. My mother had used the card to put gas in her car for the last 3 years. Caitlin had used it to buy summer clothes for the kids. Tyler had used it for what he had described as small business expenses, and what I would later learn were crypto buys on a platform I had never heard of. I removed all 4 authorized users in a single batch action. Confirmation authorized users removed. Then I went to the card controls panel. I clicked freeze card. Reason suspected unauthorized use. Effective immediately. Confirmation card frozen. Pending charges suspended. Future charges will be declined. Then I went to my second card. The Chase Sapphire Reserve, which I had used for the Marriott Bonvoy stays and which had the same 4 authorized users. Same process. Authorized users removed. Card frozen. Confirmation. Then I went to the recurring transfers section of my Bank of America app on my phone. I had 3 recurring transfers to my parents' joint checking account. Mom and Dad mortgage, help $900. Mon Erichis and Dad Erichis, $400. Family $200. I had set the third one up at $28. The night my mother had told me Caitlin had needed some help with daycare and just a little more would really lift the burden for a few months. I canceled all 3. Confirmation. 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 Then I went to the Disney World account portal I had set up in October. I canceled all 11 Disney park tickets. The system told me that because we were within 72 hours of arrival, 20% of the ticket cost would not be refunded. I told the system that was fine. Confirmation. Then I went to the Southwest Airlines website. I canceled 6 Southwest flights for the morning of Wednesday. My parents, Caitlin, Tyler, and the 3 kids. There were 5 other flights on Delta for my brother Garrett, Mackenzie, Sophia, and Tyler's parents who had been planning to meet us there. I did not cancel those. Garrett and Mackenzie had paid for their own. Then I went to the Marriott Bonvoy portal. The Polynesian Village Resort. 11 days. 4 rooms. Full meal plan. I canceled 4 rooms. The system asked if I was sure. I clicked yes. Confirmation. Then I went to my email inbox and forwarded the 4 cancellation confirmations to a folder I created and labeled simply Receipts. 6 actions. Maybe 90 seconds. 11 people who had been about to fly to Orlando in 76 hours were now booked to nowhere. Roughly $23,000 in pending charges were not going to clear. The Disney Magical Express was not coming for them. The Polynesian Village was not holding their rooms. The flights were not pulling up under their confirmation numbers. The card was a piece of frozen plastic in a wallet in my mother's purse in Apex. I closed the laptop. I went back to my Caesar wrap. I finished my afternoon meetings. I drove home at 6:15. I made spaghetti. I fed Mason. I sat on my couch. I waited. My mother called at 8:06 p.m. I was washing my 1 plate. The phone rang on the kitchen counter, and I let it ring 4 times. I answered on the 5th. Bryn, Marie, merci. My mother had not used my middle name since I was 11 and had broken a casserole dish at Thanksgiving. What in God's name have you done? I said, Hi. Mom? Hi. Mom, hi. Mom, I just got off the phone with American Express. I just got off the phone with Marriott. I just got off the phone with Southwest. And do you know what they all told me? They told me the bookings have been canceled. The cards have been frozen. The flights are gone. The rooms are gone. 3 days before the trip. Bryn. 3 days. Do you have any idea what you have done? Aiden has been counting down the days. Aiden has a Mickey Mouse t-shirt he picked out himself. He has been telling his preschool class. What am I supposed to tell him? I said. Mom, you told me this afternoon that I was not invited. So I uninvited the trip from my card. The card is mine. I am sorry that the trip cannot happen. I hope you and Dad and Caitlin and Tyler will be able to rebook it on one of your own cards. My mother made a sound I had not heard from her before. It was not a scream. It was the sound a woman makes when an invoice she has been hiding for 7 years suddenly arrives. You can't do this to your sister. Bryn, you cannot do this. Those kids. Caitlin has been crying for an hour. Tyler is in his car driving around because he can't be in the house. Your father is sitting at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. Do you understand what you have done to this family? I said. Yes. Mom, I think I do. You, ungrateful, you spoiled. Ungrateful, I said. Mom, I have to go. Mason needs to be fed. I hung up while she was mid-sentence. I had never hung up on my mother in 30 years. I want to skip ahead about 90 minutes. Because the next thing that happened is the thing I want you to understand. I sat on my couch with Mason on my lap, and I opened my Bank of America app. I scrolled to the transaction history. I went back 12 months at first. Then 24. Then 36. Then, all the way back to 2018, I filtered by recipient. I sorted by amount. I copied 7 years of transfers into a spreadsheet on my laptop. The numbers, when they sat next to each other on a screen, told a story my mother had not been telling. Total transfers to Glenn and Roxanne Mercer joint checking. 2018 to May 2025, $126,000. Total American Express charges for Mercer family vacations, $87,000. Total Chase Sapphire charges for Mercer family hotels and meals, about $10,000. The total was not exactly $213,000. The total was $223,000 and change. I had been underestimating it in my own head for 3 years. I made myself look at the cleanest possible cross-section. I exported the bank statements from the joint checking account. I was a co-signer on a status my mother had added me to in 2019 to help dispute a charge and had quietly never removed me from. I cross-referenced every transfer in with every transfer out, and a picture started to assemble itself. Slowly, Cell by cell. The way pictures do when you stop assuming and start counting. The mortgage. I had been told for 7 years that $900 a month went to the mortgage on the Apex house. The mortgage on the Apex house, according to the joint checking account, was $847 and had been paid by autodraft for the last 4 years. 11 months out of the last 48. No mortgage payment had been logged at all, which meant the mortgage was either paid by someone else or had been put on forbearance. I made a note to check the forbearance angle. The medications. I had been told that $400 a month went to my father's blood pressure prescriptions and my mother's anxiety medication. According to the prescription history on the Walgreens app, which my mother had given me access to in 2020 to coordinate refills, the total monthly out-of-pocket on my father's blood pressure medications was $43 after his Medicare supplement, and the total out-of-pocket on my mother's anxiety prescription was $11. $54 a month. I had been transferring $480 in The other $346 a month was going somewhere. For 7 years, that alone was about $29,000 I had been sending into a category that did not exist. The family vacations. This was the part that made my chest go cold. I pulled up the credit card statements for the Outer Banks 2018. The Smokies 2019. The Disney Cruise 2020. Charleston 2021. Punta Cana 2022. Universal 2023. The Outer Banks again 2024. And the half-paid Disney 2025. I added the trip charges. $87,000 on the dot. Then I looked at the side charges. The ones I had not paid attention to at the time. The ones that had hit my card the same week as each trip, but had been labeled with vague merchant names. A charge in 2022 for $14,042. 6 days before the Punta Cana trip. To a company called Tropical Vista Holdings, LLC. I had asked my mother about it at the time. She had told me it was the airfare for my father's brother, Uncle Mark, and his wife who were coming along. Uncle Mark had not come to Punta Cana. I had not noticed at the time, because there were 10 people there, and the trip had been chaotic. Tropical Vista Holdings, LLC turned out to be the booking name for a private 4-bedroom villa rental in St. Brand, Lucia, that had been occupied by exactly 2 people for 5 nights in October 2022. Caitlin and Tyler. Without me? Without my parents. Without the kids. A couples-only trip my parents had told me was for their anniversary. Except my parents had not gone. My sister had gone. On my card. To a villa I had been told was for an uncle who had never boarded a plane. There were more. A charge in 2023 for $9,000 to a company called Coastal Education Group that I had been told was a continuing education course for my father. Coastal Education Group turned out to be an MBA application consultancy. Tyler Hale had paid them $9,000 to help him prepare 3 MBA applications. Tyler had submitted 0 applications. The money was gone. A charge in 2024 for $23,000 in 3 installments labeled Mom Health Equipment Loan. My mother did not have any health equipment. The charges had been forwarded from a Cash App account in Tyler Hale's name to a crypto exchange called Helix that had been delisted by the SEC in November 2024. I sat on my couch with Mason, purring against my hip, and I made myself add it up. Of the $223,000 I had moved through my accounts to my family in 7 years, I could attribute roughly $38,000 to verifiable parental needs, mortgage gap, real medical care, real propane and utility shortfalls. The remaining $185,000 had gone somewhere else. About $87,000 to family vacations I had thought were gifts. About $56,000 to Caitlin and Tyler in disguised charges. About $42,000 in cash withdrawals at ATMs, ATMs. North Carolina. I locked my phone. I set it face down on the coffee table. I sat in the dim living room with my cat for a long time. The phone rang again at 9:41 p.m. I did not answer. The phone rang at 9:46. I did not answer. The phone rang at 9:51. I picked up because it was a different name on the screen. My grandfather. Brynje. Walt's voice was the same as it had been the day my grandmother Margaret died. Careful. Low. Kind. Your mama just called me. She is hysterical. She told me you canceled a Disney trip and 3 credit cards and the auto pay and the trip insurance. She told me you are out of your mind. She told me you have abandoned the family. I have one question. Brynje. Have you opened the folder yet? I said. Grandpa. What folder? He said. The one your grandma sent you for your 30th birthday. The one in the box you have not opened. The one she made me promise to call you about only when you were ready. I think you are ready. Brynje. I think tonight is the night. Go and find it. I'll wait. I stood up slowly. Mason jumped down. I walked into the second bedroom of my condo, the one I used as a home office and storage. In the closet, on the top shelf, behind 2 boxes of college textbooks I had never thrown out, there was a flat white gift box wrapped in a faded pink ribbon. It had been delivered to my front desk on the morning of my 30th birthday in November. 3 months after Margaret had died in August. I had not opened it. I had not been able to. I took it down. I carried it to the couch. The phone was still on speaker. Walt was still there. Untie the ribbon. Brynje. There's a note on top. I untied the ribbon. The note on top was in Margaret's careful Palmer method handwriting on a single sheet of pale blue stationery. Brynje, when you are ready. Read everything. Walt knows the order. Love. Grandma. Underneath the note was a worn leather portfolio, identical to the one Walt had described over the phone an hour earlier. Don't open the portfolio yet, Walt said softly. I'm coming over tomorrow morning. I want to be there when you open it. Is that all right? I told him it was. Good. 8 a.m. I'll bring coffee. Get some sleep. Brynje. Tomorrow is the long day. He hung up. I sat on my couch with the closed leather portfolio on my lap. And Mason climbed back up. And I looked at the soft worn cover for a long time. And I did not open it. I did exactly what my grandfather had told me to do. I went to bed. Walt arrived at my condo at exactly 7:58 Tuesday morning with 2 coffees from the Beanwell on Hillsborough Street. A brown paper bag containing 2 everything, bagels with cream cheese, and a manila envelope tucked under his left arm. He let himself in with the spare key I had given him 3 years ago. I was already in the kitchen in jeans and one of Cole's no. Scratch that. I was alone. That is a page memory bleeding into mine. I was already in the kitchen in jeans and the Carolina Panthers crewneck sweatshirt I had owned since 2019. Walt set the coffees on the counter. He set the bagels on the counter. He set the envelope down next to them. He looked at me for a long moment. Brynje. You sleep at all? I told him I had slept 5 hours. Which was true. That's about as good as you were going to get, he said. He opened the bag, took out a bagel, handed it to me, and pointed at the couch. Sit. Eat. Then we do the work. I sat. I ate. Walt sat down in the upholstered chair across from me, the one Mason had claimed since I moved in. Mason climbed into Walt's lap because Mason had decided 18 months ago that Walt was the only other human worth tolerating. Walt scratched behind Mason's ear with his thumb and watched me chew. He did not start the conversation. He let me start it. When I had finished half the bagel, I picked up the leather portfolio from where it had been sitting on the coffee table since the night before, unopened, with Margaret's ribbon laid neatly across the top of it. Grandpa, I'm ready. He nodded. All right. We are going to do this in a particular order. Your grandmother was very particular. She had her reasons. The first thing in the portfolio is a letter. I want you to read the letter before you look at anything else. Out loud. If you can. Margaret asked me to make sure you read it out loud the first time. She said it would land different. I lifted the portfolio onto my lap. I untied the small leather cord that held the flap shut. Inside, on top of a stack of stapled documents and bank printouts, was a single sealed envelope with my name on it in Margaret's careful Palmer method handwriting. Brynje. I opened the envelope. There were 3 pages. Folded once. On the same pale blue stationery as the note on the gift box. I cleared my throat. I read out loud. My dearest Brynje. If you are reading this, 2 things have happened. The first is that I have passed, which I am sorry for, though I have lived a long good life and I am not afraid of going. The second is that your grandfather has decided you are finally ready to know what we knew. I want to start with the part that matters most. We have always seen you. Brynje. We have always known. Your mother loves you in the only way she knows how, which is by needing you. But needing is not the same thing as loving. Your father loves you in the only way he knows how, which is by staying out of the way of your mother. But staying out of the way is not the same thing as standing up for you. We watched both of them. Your grandfather and I. For 30 years. We watched what they did with what you gave them. And about 5 years ago, when you got the promotion at the hospital network, and your mother started the recurring transfers from your account, your grandfather and I sat down at our kitchen table in Pinehurst, and we made a decision. We could not stop your mother from taking what you would freely give. But we could make sure that when she finally pushed you too far, and we knew she would, because women like your mother always do, there would be a place to stand. I had to stop reading. Walt did not say anything. He sat with Mason in his lap and waited. I drank some of the coffee. I started again. Brynje. In 2020. When your sister Caitlin started telling the family that Tyler's parents were paying for the boys' private school tuition, your grandfather and I did some looking. We are old. But we are not foolish. Your grandfather has friends at the school. Tyler's parents had never paid 1 dime. The tuition was being paid from a checking account in your mother's name, with money that had been wired in on the 1st of every month from a Wells Fargo account in Raleigh. That was the first thing we noticed. The next thing we noticed was the credit card. We watched it for 3 years before we said anything to each other out loud. We tracked the charges as best as 2 retired people can. We could not see your statements. But we could see your mother's spending. We could see when there was suddenly a new outdoor patio set in the backyard in Apex. We could see when Caitlin showed up at Thanksgiving with a new Range Rover. We could see when Tyler started talking at Christmas about a small investment opportunity and stopped talking about it 3 months later. We added it up the best we could. We came up with a number. I want you to know our number. Brynje. It will help you trust the numbers you are about to find for yourself. We estimated, conservatively, that between 2018 and 2024, your mother and your sister's husband had taken approximately $190,000 from you in undisclosed transfers and disguised credit card charges. We may have been low. We probably were. Your grandfather has the receipts in the same portfolio you are holding. Look at the 3rd document down. You will see what we saw. I lowered the page. I looked at Walt. He nodded once. Keep reading first. Brynje. The numbers will wait. I kept reading. What we did? Brynje. Is this? Your grandfather and I went to a lawyer in Southern Pines named Imani Brooks, who is the daughter of an old friend of mine from the church choir. Imani is sharp and quiet, and we trusted her. We told Imani what we had seen. Imani put us in touch with an estate planning attorney in Cary. a woman named Constance Yi, who specializes in family asset protection. Constance helped us make a trust. The trust was signed and witnessed and notarized on April 14th. 2023. 15 months before I went into the hospital for the heart procedure, I did not survive. I was of sound mind. My doctor signed an attestation. Imani signed as witness. Constance signed as drafter. The trust is airtight. Brynje. And your grandfather will explain it to you in detail. But here is the summary. The Pinehurst house, where your grandfather and I lived for 41 years, is no longer in our names. It is in a trust. The trust beneficiary is you, with a lifetime occupancy clause for your grandfather. The Apex house, where your mother and father live, is not in their names either. It has not been in their names since 2003. I bought that house outright for cash in 2003 when your mother went through her first manic period and your father was about to lose his job. I never told your mother. I never told your father. I held the deed. I let them live there for 20 years, rent-free, while telling them they were paying the mortgage to a private bank, which they were. Except the private bank was me. The deed is in the same trust. The trust beneficiary is you, with a lifetime occupancy clause for your parents. They can live there until they die. They cannot sell it. They cannot borrow against it. They never could. The beach house in Emerald Isle, which your father has bragged about owning since 1998, is also not in his name. Your grandfather and I bought it in 1998 with the proceeds from your grandfather's pension lump sum. We let your father use it as if it were his. We knew he would brag. We let him. It is in the trust. The trust beneficiary is you. There is also a brokerage account at Vanguard, in our names, valued as of January 2023 at $1,200,000. It is in the trust. The trust beneficiary is you. In increments. The way Constance helped us write it out, so you would not be tempted to do anything foolish or be pressured into anything foolish. There is a small set-aside fund for Garrett and Mackenzie and for the grandkids, which is detailed on the second page. Caitlin and Tyler are not in the trust at all. We made that decision in 2021. We have not regretted it. Brynje. I want you to hear me. The reason we did all of this is not because we love you more than the others. It is because you were the only one who never asked us for anything, and the only one your mother had been quietly draining. We could not make her stop. We could only make sure that when you finally stopped her, the floor under you was steady. That is what grandmothers are for. When the mothers fail, read the documents. Take a day. Then, call the attorney whose card is clipped to the back of this letter. She is waiting for you. She has been waiting since August. I love you. Brynje, I am so proud of you. Don't let them sell my house. Grandma. I lowered the 3 pages onto my lap. My eyes were wet, but I was not actually crying yet. Walt was watching me with the same steady expression he had worn at Margaret's graveside. You all right? Brynje, I said. Grandpa. Did you know all of this? He said. Every word. Your grandmother and I made every decision together. Constance was very good. Imani was very good. We sat on this for 15 months because your grandmother wanted you to choose the moment yourself. She didn't want me to walk in and hand it to you. She wanted you to be ready. She thought it would happen sooner than this. Frankly, she thought you'd reach the end of your patience in 2023. She was a little surprised you lasted until 2025. I laughed. It came out shaky, but it came out. I am too. I said. Walt said. All right. Let's look at the rest. For the next 2 hours we went through the portfolio together. The trust document, 63 pages. Drafted by Constance Yi. Signed and notarized on April 14th. 2023. with Imani Brooks as witness and Margaret's primary care physician, Dr. Annette Walters, as second witness with a competency attestation appended. The Apex House deed, original from 2003, transferred into the trust in 2023. The Emerald Isle Beach House deed, original from 1998, transferred into the trust in 2023. The Pinehurst House deed, original from 1982, transferred into the trust in 2023. The Vanguard brokerage statement as of December 2024, valued at $1,247,000. A separate set-aside trust for Garrett's daughter Sophia at $100,000. Also in the trust, a set-aside fund for any future children Garrett and Mackenzie might have, at $150,000. And then, behind the legal documents, the part that broke me, a second envelope, smaller, plain, with my name on it again, in Margaret's handwriting. Inside the envelope was a single photograph. It was a snapshot from 1999. I was 5 years old. I was sitting on the front porch of the Pinehurst house, in a pink swimsuit and bare feet, holding a melting orange popsicle. Margaret was sitting beside me in her wide-brimmed gardening hat. Walt was crouched in front of us, taking the photo through one of his old film cameras. You could see his reflection faintly in Margaret's sunglasses. On the back of the photograph, in Margaret's handwriting, 3 lines. Brynja. I Fim. The one we kept watching. Love. Grandma and Grandpa. I set the photograph down on the coffee table. I did cry then. Finally. Quietly. For about 3 minutes. Walt did not say anything. Mason got down from his lap and walked over and pressed himself against my shin. When I could speak again, I said, "Grandpa, what do I do now?" Walt said. "Brynja. The first thing you do is finish your bagel. Then you call Constance Yee. Her number is on the card in the back. She is expecting your call. Then you and I are going to sit down and figure out what you want to do with all of this. Your mother is going to find out about the trust eventually. She doesn't know yet. We have not told her. You get to choose when she finds out. And you get to choose how. There is no wrong way to do this. Take your time." I called Constance Yee at 10:40 a.m. She had me on her schedule at noon. Walt drove me to Cary. We sat in Constance's small office on Kildare Farm Road, in 2 leather chairs across from her oak desk. Constance was about 55 years old, half Korean, half white, with her hair pulled back in a tight low bun and reading glasses on a beaded chain. She had Margaret's intake forms in front of her. She had been waiting for me since August. "Bryn," she said, "your grandmother was one of the most prepared clients I have ever had. Every concern she raised, we addressed. Every contingency she anticipated, we drafted around. The trust is solid. Your mother could file in court tomorrow, and the trust would stand. I want you to know that before we discuss anything else, because the rest of what we discuss will be easier if you know the floor under you is poured concrete." I asked her what my mother might try. Constance was honest. She will try to claim Margaret was not of sound mind. She will be wrong, because we anticipated her. And Dr. Walters's competency attestation is ironclad. She will try to claim undue influence by your grandfather. She will be wrong, because we have video recordings of every signing session and a third-party witness at each one. She will try to claim that the Apex house was a gift to her with constructive ownership through 20 years of occupancy. She will be wrong, because every property tax bill and every homeowner's insurance policy on that house since 2003 has been paid by an LLC your grandparents controlled, and we have those records. She may try to harass you. She may try to involve your father. She may threaten lawsuits. She will hire a lawyer. The lawyer will tell her the same thing I am telling you now, which is that she has no case. If she persists, we have an attorney's fee provision in the trust that allows you to recover legal costs from any beneficiary who challenges the trust. Caitlin is not a beneficiary. Tyler is not a beneficiary. Your parents are beneficiaries of the lifetime occupancy clause only, which means if they challenge the trust, they forfeit the lifetime occupancy. They can keep the house, or they can sue. They cannot do both. Walt nodded slowly beside me. Constance and your grandmother thought of everything. Brynja. That last clause was Margaret's idea. She said it would keep your mother polite. I asked Constance what to do next. Constance handed me a folder. This folder is yours. It contains a notarized one-page summary of the trust that you can read aloud in any room you want. It contains a notarized one-page summary of the deed history on the Apex house, which you can hand to your parents at any time. It contains a notarized one-page summary of the Vanguard brokerage transfer. It contains a notarized letter from me as the drafting attorney attesting that Margaret was of sound mind, was not under duress, and was acting on her own initiative. You can carry any of these with you. You can present them. You do not need my permission to use them. They are yours. I asked one last question. Constance, if my mother is at the casino, if my mother has a gambling problem, does any of that change? Constance looked at me steadily. Bryn, does your mother have a gambling problem? I told her I did not know yet. I told her I was about to find out. Constance said, Look, Odi, then call me. We may need to add a clause to the lifetime occupancy that protects the house from being used as collateral. Imani is licensed in North Carolina and can draft that this week if needed. Call me on Friday. I called Marisol Cruz that afternoon. Marisol is my best friend from college, 31 years old, and the lead penetration tester for a cybersecurity firm in Research Triangle Park that handles compliance audits for financial institutions. Marisol arrived at my condo at 6 p.m. with 2 bags of Bonchon Korean fried chicken in her laptop. Brynja, we are going to put your family through an audit they did not consent to. Are you ready? I told her I was. We worked until 2 a.m. Marisol pulled my full credit card statements through API access I gave her permission to use. We cross-referenced every merchant name with the actual business behind it. We mapped every cash withdrawal on my parents' joint checking account by zip code. We pulled property records on the Apex house and the Emerald Isle Beach house through public databases. We confirmed every line of what Margaret had written in her letter. The picture that came together by midnight was worse than what Margaret had estimated. Total disguise charges to Caitlin and Tyler over 7 years. $96,000. The Costa Rica villa was real, but there was also a Cabo trip in 2021 I had never even heard of, for $11,000. Charged as Dad birthday cruise. My father had not gone on a cruise. Caitlin and Tyler had gone to Cabo. There was a 2020 charge for $7,000 to a fertility clinic in Asheville. Charged as Mom's specialist co-pay. My mother had not seen a fertility specialist. Caitlin had been pursuing a 3rd pregnancy and had asked my mother to handle the bill discreetly. Total cash withdrawals on my parents' joint checking. Traceable to zip codes within a 2-mile radius of the Caesars Cherokee Casino in Murphy, North Carolina. About $91,000 over 7 years. My mother had not been making weekend trips to visit her cousin Bethann in the mountains. My mother had been making weekend trips to a casino 3 hours west of Apex, about 18 times a year, for 7 years. The math on the cousin Bethann trips alone added up to about 126 gambling weekends across 7 years. My mother had been at a slot floor at least once every 3 weeks for almost a decade. On my dime. Marisol leaned back in my dining chair at 1:50 a.m. and looked at me. Bryn, I have audited Fortune 500 companies. I have audited municipal pension funds. I have audited a hedge fund that lost 96% of its value in a quarter. Your mother is the most consistent, unauthorized expense report I have ever seen. I laughed for about a minute. Marisol left at 2:15. I printed the summary spreadsheet to a single page on my home office printer. 12 rows. 7 years. $223,000. The legitimate column. The casino column. The Caitlin and Tyler column. 1 clean sheet. I put it in a folder. I went to bed. I slept 6 hours. Which was a miracle. My mother called Wednesday morning at 9:11. Brynje. Sweetheart. Are you okay? I have been worried sick. The voice had reset to warm. The screaming version of my mother from Monday night had been put away in whatever closet she kept her real face in. I knew this voice. This was the voice she used when the previous strategy had not worked, and she was about to try a softer one. Honey, I want to talk about this whole misunderstanding. I think we just got off on the wrong foot. Caitlin feels terrible about how the conversation went on Monday. She really did. She was crying all night. She wants to apologize. I said, Mom? The trip isn't happening. I canceled the recurring transfer too. The mortgage one and the prescription one and the family one. They are gone. There was a pause. Then my mother's voice did something I had not heard before. It went very quiet. Bryn, what do you mean you canceled all 3? I said. Mom. Just what it sounds like. I canceled all 3. They will not run on the 1st of June. You have until then to make other arrangements. My mother said. Honey, you can't do that. Your father's prescriptions, I said. Mom, Daddy's prescriptions cost $54 a month. I have the Walgreens history. Whatever else the $400 a month was paying for was not Daddy's prescriptions. We can talk about that on Sunday. Why don't you bring it up at family dinner? My mother did not say anything for almost 20 seconds. Then she said, in a different voice, a thinner voice. A voice I had not heard from her, in maybe a decade. Bryn. What do you know? I said. Mom, I know enough. Family dinner Sunday. I'll be there. So will Grandpa Walt. I heard her draw in a sharp breath at Walt's name. Walt? Why is Walt coming? I said. Mom? I have to feed Mason. I hung up. The aunt arrived 12 hours later. Aunt Sherry, my mother's younger sister. 58 years old. Accountant at a small CPA firm in Wake Forest. Married to my Uncle Phil, who managed a Lowe's home improvement store. Sherry had not texted me directly in 3 years. Her last text had been a request to donate to a Boy Scout popcorn fundraiser. The text this time was longer. Bryn, your mother just called me crying. I am so disappointed in you. After everything they have done, after raising you, after putting you through college, you are choosing this exact moment to abandon them. Caitlin is in pieces. Tyler is humiliated. The kids are devastated. Your grandmother would be ashamed. Family takes care of family. You need to call your mother and apologize and unfreeze that card. This is beneath you. I read it twice. Then I attached the single-page summary Marisol, and I had printed. I typed beneath it. Aunt Sherry here is where the family money has been going. Ask Mom about Caesar's Cherokee. Ask Caitlin about the Cabo trip in 2021 that Dad never went on. Ask Tyler about the crypto buys disguised as Mom's medical equipment. I love you. I hope you read the numbers carefully. I hit send. The phone showed the ellipsis of Sherry typing. The ellipsis ran for almost 2 minutes. Then it stopped. Then nothing. Sherry did not reply that night. Sherry did not reply Thursday. Sherry did not reply Friday. I imagined her at her kitchen table with the single page printed in front of her and her own checkbook, open beside it, doing the math she had been trained to do. And finally seeing what her sister had been doing for a decade. On Friday afternoon at 4:11 p.m. Almost 96 hours after I had hung up on my mother for the second time in my life, my phone buzzed once. One sentence from Aunt Sherry. "Bryn, I am so sorry. I will be at Sunday dinner. I will not be on her side." I forwarded that text to Walt. Walt called me 30 seconds later. "Brynje, Sunday is going to be a different kind of day than your mother thinks it is going to be. I want you to know, I am proud of you. Your grandmother would have been proud of you. Come pick me up Sunday at noon. We'll drive to Apex together. I'll bring the portfolio." I told him I would. I hung up. I sat on my couch in the dim light of Friday evening. Mason climbed into my lap. I opened the leather portfolio on the coffee table one more time. I looked at the photograph of myself at 5 years old on the porch in Pinehurst. The one we kept watching. I closed the portfolio. 2 days until Sunday. I was ready. I picked Walt up in front of his Pinehurst rancher at 12:08 on Sunday afternoon. He was sitting on his front porch in a navy suit jacket, gray slacks, and a tie I had not seen since Margaret's funeral. The leather portfolio was on his lap. His cane was hooked over the arm of the porch glider, the one he had bought with Margaret at a yard sale in 1974 and never replaced. When he saw my Subaru pull into the driveway, he stood slowly, picked up the portfolio, picked up the cane, and walked down the front walk without help. I had offered 3 times to come and get him, and he had told me 3 times he would walk to the car on his own. Brynje. A man walks to his own car on the day he hands his daughter-in-law the truth. You don't drive up to the porch and load him in. "Let me have this." I had let him have it. Walt got in slowly. He set the portfolio between us on the center console. He fastened his seatbelt. He smoothed his tie. He turned to me. "You eat?" I told him I had eaten half a piece of toast at 7:30 and could not get any more down. "That's all right," he said. "You'll eat tonight. Tonight you'll eat the best meal of your life, and you'll sleep 10 hours. I drove the 44 minutes from Pinehurst to Apex on Highway 1, and then I 540 in the slow Sunday traffic of families coming back from beach weekends and church services. Walt did not say much. He listened to NPR on low-volume Joshua Johnson's voice, asking a guest a careful question about something I was not quite tracking, and he watched the trees go by, about 15 miles out. He turned the radio off. "Brynje, 2 things I want you to remember today. And then I will stop telling you things. The first is that you are not making the trouble today. You are only naming what your mother has been making for 20 years. There is a difference. Your grandmother understood that. I want you to remember Margaret understood that. The second thing is that whatever your mother does today, you do not have to match her energy. You let me match her energy. That's why I'm here. You stay where you are. You stay calm. The numbers stay calm. Numbers don't shout. Neither do you." I told him I would remember. He patted my hand once on the gear shift, then put his own hand back in his lap. We pulled into my parents' driveway at 1:23 p.m. The driveway already held 4 vehicles. My mother's Buick Encore, my father's Ford F-150, Caitlin's leased Range Rover, freshly washed. With the dent on the back bumper from a parking incident I had paid the deductible on 6 months earlier. Tyler's gray Tesla Model 8, which I now knew had been partially funded by money he had taken from me through Mom Health Equipment. Aunt Sherry's Honda CR-V, parked across the street. Because Sherry had told me on Friday night that she would be there, but she did not want her car next to Caitlin's. Uncle Phil's truck was not there. Phil was at a Cub Scouts pancake breakfast he had committed to weeks ago. He had told Sherry, when she had read him the single page, "I'm not getting in front of that. You go." My brother Garrett's Toyota 4Runner pulled in behind me as I was killing the engine. Garrett got out first. Then Mackenzie. Then their 3-year-old Sophia in a yellow sundress. Garrett walked over to my driver's side window. "Bryn, I want you to know something. Mom called me Friday and told me everything you'd done. I asked her if I could see the bookings. The cancellations. The bank stuff." She got real quiet and said it wasn't my business. Then Aunt Sherry called Mac last night and read her the single page over the phone. "I just want you to know. I'm here for you. Whatever happens in there. Mac and we're with you." I felt something I had not felt at any point in the previous 5 days. I felt seen by a sibling. "Garrett, thank you. Just stay near Sophia. Mom is going to try to use her if it gets hard." Garrett nodded once. We walked up to the front door together, me with the diaper bag. "No. Sorry." The navy tote bag with the folder inside, Walt with his portfolio, Garrett with Sophia on his hip, Mackenzie next to him with a covered casserole dish she had brought, because Mackenzie is the only one in our family who never shows up empty-handed. My mother opened the door before we could ring the bell. She had styled her hair. She had put on lipstick. She was wearing the Easter sweater again. The soft pink cardigan with the small embroidered tulips on the front. She had set the stage. "Sweet pea," she said. She moved toward me with her arms out for a hug. She saw Walt behind me. She stopped. "Walt." "Oh, I didn't realize, Bryn." "Sweetie." "You didn't tell me," Walt said only. "Patricia. I'd like a chair. Please. The straight one from the dining room is fine." My father appeared in the hallway behind my mother. The way my father always appeared in a hallway behind my mother. Half a beat too late. Hands in his pockets. Eyes already on the floor. "Hey." "Dad," I said. He looked up at me. He looked away. "Hey." "Brynja." My mother gestured us into the living room with a sweep of her hand that was supposed to look gracious and looked, instead, slightly desperate. The living room had been arranged. The recliner had been moved against the wall. The coffee table had been polished. There were fresh flowers in the center of it, pink and white peonies. My mother's choice. Because peonies in May were what my mother bought when she needed a room to feel like an apology was about to happen. The audience was already seated. Aunt Sherry on the love seat closest to the front window. Alone. The way she had asked to sit. Caitlin on the leather ottoman in the center of the room. In a long camel-colored cardigan and a cream silk blouse clothes I had paid for and did not yet know it. Tyler behind her. Standing. Leaning on the back of the ottoman with one hand on Caitlin's shoulder. Their 3 kids, 8 and 6. Hayden, 4. Charlotte, 2 were in the backyard with my father's sister Aunt Dot, who had been recruited specifically to keep the kids out of the room. My mother sat down on the couch nearest to me. Walt sat in the dining chair Garrett brought out for him, positioning it in the open arc facing the love seat. Garrett, Mackenzie, and Sophia took the longer couch. I took the upholstered chair my mother had angled toward the center of the room. I kept the navy tote at my feet. The folder was in it. The single page Marisol and I had printed was tucked inside the folder. The notarized one-page trust summary Constance Yee had given me on Tuesday was inside the folder too. Walt's portfolio rested on his lap. My mother began. "Family. Before anyone says anything, I want to thank everyone for coming on such short notice. I know this has been a hard week for all of us. There has been a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of hurt feelings, and a lot of things said that probably shouldn't have been said. On all sides. And I just want to start by saying that your father and I love both our girls. We have always loved you. Brynja. And we love you. Caitlin. We have never played favorites. Even though I know it can sometimes feel that way, when one of you needs us more in different seasons of life." She paused, the way she always paused, for the room to murmur agreement. Aunt Sherry did not murmur. Mackenzie did not murmur. Garrett did not murmur. The silence was unfamiliar enough that my mother had to push past it. Now, Brynje. Sweetheart, I want to say I am sorry. I am sorry if what I said to you on Monday came out wrong. I did not mean that you weren't welcome on the trip. I just meant Caitlin and Tyler were worried about the dynamic with the kids, and we thought it might be more comfortable for you to have a quieter weekend. That is all I meant. And then, when you got upset and canceled everything, I think we all overreacted. We are family. We can fix this. We can rebook the trip. Tyler and Caitlin have offered to put it on their card this time. I noticed she did not specify what card. Walt noticed too. He did not say anything yet. My mother kept going. And Brynje. About the recurring transfers, I understand if you need to pause them for a little while. We will figure things out. We always do. But sweetie, your father's blood pressure has been higher this month. And the propane bill came in at $380. And I have been worried sick about all of it. I just want us to be a family again. I want us to put this behind us. I want Aiden and Hayden and Charlotte to have their grandmother and their aunt at the same dinner table again. She turned toward me with the wet eyes she had been preparing for 90 minutes. And honey, I just don't understand where this is coming from. Why now? Why this week? Your sister has 3 children. Your sister doesn't have your life. You don't have kids. You can be flexible. That's why we have always counted on you. Caitlin never has these emergencies because Caitlin has so much on her plate already. Sweetie, you've always been the strong one. That's not a criticism. That's a compliment. The 4th time in 5 days, in a warm, decorated room full of relatives and grandchildren. My mother had handed me. Grip first. The exact sentence she had used on Monday afternoon. That's what you're good for. I reached into the navy tote at my feet. With one hand. And I took out the single folded page. I did not stand up. My ribs were not broken, that was Paige. But my hands were steady. And I was 30 years old. And I did not need to stand to be heard. I unfolded the page against my thigh. I laid it on the coffee table between the peonies, where the Sunday afternoon light from the front window fell across it. I said, in the same level voice I used to brief the WakeMed executive board on a database failure. You're right. Mama, Caitlin doesn't have my life. I don't have kids. And I have spent the last 7 years paying for everyone in this room. I would like to show all of you exactly what that looked like. The room went very still. Aunt Sherry leaned forward despite herself. Mackenzie put her hand on Garrett's knee. This, I said, touching the top of the page, is every dollar I have moved through my accounts to this family between January 2018 and last week, $223,461, 84 months. I let that number sit for one beat. Aunt Sherry, the CPA, closed her eyes for a moment. The top rows are the things I was proud to pay for. $38,000 for the mortgage gap when Daddy went to part-time. $5,000 for Daddy's blood pressure and Mama's anxiety medications. $3,000 for actual propane and utility shortfalls. About $46,000 total. Real things. Realcare. I tapped the page lightly. The rest is the part Mama hasn't been telling everyone. I looked at my mother. She had stopped breathing. Then I looked at the room. $91,000 in cash withdrawals from the joint checking account I have been a co-signer on since 2019. Almost all of them at ATMs within 2 miles of the Caesars Cherokee Casino in Murphy, North Carolina. 126 gambling weekends across 7 years. About once every 3 weeks. For almost a decade. While Mama was telling all of you, she was visiting her cousin Bethan in the mountains. Aunt Sherry made a sound. Sherry, I know. I said quietly. Bethan told you were welcome to come up any time. You never went because you assumed Mama was there. Mama was never there. My mother's hand was trembling on her own knee. She had not yet spoken. And $96,000 to Caitlin and Tyler. I did not look at my sister. I looked at the page. The Cabo trip in 2021. $11,000 that Tyler took Caitlin on while Daddy stayed home. Charged as Dad birthday cruise. The Costa Rica Villa in 2022. $14,000. Charged as Mom anniversary cruise. The MBA application consulting in 2023. $9,000. That Tyler never used. The crypto exchange in 2024. $23,000. Charged across 3 months. As Mom health equipment loan. The fertility clinic in 2020. $7,000. Charged as Mom specialist copay, which was actually for Caitlin's third pregnancy with Charlotte. Because Caitlin asked Mama to handle the bill discreetly so Tyler's parents wouldn't know they had used IVF, and the boys' private school tuition in 2024 through 2025. $42,000. That Caitlin has been telling everyone Tyler's parents are paying on the minute. The room had stopped breathing. Tyler's hand had left Caitlin's shoulder. He had stepped back 2 inches without realizing it. Caitlin's face was the color of the cream silk blouse. That's where the money comes from. Caitlin, I said, gently. Because none of this was Caitlin's fault first. It came from me. It always came from me. Every Cabo sunset photo on your Instagram in 2021. Every product shot at the Costa Rica Villa in 2022. Every line in your Goodbye Toxicity reel where you thank your higher self for trusting the abundance that came from me. The abundance was a Wells Fargo wire transfer from a senior systems administrator at a healthcare network. I want you to look at the page. Caitlin, I want you to look at it for as long as it takes. Caitlin looked at the page. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. She looked at her mother. She looked at Tyler. Tyler had moved a full step away from her now. He was looking at the floor. He had taken his hand entirely off her cardigan. My mother's performance had nowhere to go. The tears she had preloaded were now just water on a face caught in a room of relatives who had finished believing her. Bryn, she said. And her voice was the thin voice now. The voice from the second call on Wednesday morning. Bryn. Honey. Some of those are not Caitlin, and Tyler had a difficult year. And we, your father and I, we wanted to help them in a way that would not embarrass them. I said, Mama? You wanted to help them with my money in a way that would not embarrass them. That is a different sentence. My mother opened her mouth. I saw her reach. Automatically. For the only tool she had left to make me the villain. To call me cruel. To bury the page under a landslide of feeling the way she had been doing for 30 years. She got as far as, Bryn. That is a vicious thing to say. Your father and I never. And that was when my grandfather Walt set his cane against the coffee table and laid the leather portfolio down next to the single page. The brittle leather cord had to be coaxed off. It had been on long enough to leave grooves. Walt opened the portfolio with the unhurried hands of a man who had been waiting 15 months for this exact afternoon. Patricia. Please stop talking now. My mother stopped. Even my mother knew that when Walt Mercer said please like that. It was the same as a stop sign. Walt drew out a stapled document. It was thick. It was official. There was the embossed seal of the Carey law firm Constance Yee worked out of on the cover page. He laid it on the coffee table next to my single page. This is your mother-in-law Margaret's trust, he said, addressing the room. Not my mother. Margaret and I sat down with our attorney in Carey. A woman named Constance Yee. In 2022, we made a decision together. We made the decision based on what Margaret had observed over 5 years of watching what was happening in this family with Bryn's money. The trust was signed by Margaret on April 14th. 2023. Her primary care physician signed an attestation that Margaret was of sound mind and acting on her own initiative. Imani Brooks, an attorney in Southern Pines, signed as witness. Constance Yee signed as the drafting attorney. The document has been on file with the Wake County Register of Deeds since April 22. 2023. He tapped the cover. This trust contains 4 properties. The first is the Pinehurst house, which Margaret and I owned outright 9. That is, in trust to Bryn, with lifetime occupancy for me. The second is the beach house in Emerald Isle, North Carolina, which Margaret and I bought in 1998 with my pension lump sum. Roy has been telling the family he owns it. He never owned it. It is in trust to Bryn. The third is a Vanguard brokerage account that was valued, as of January of this year, at $1,247,000. That is in trust to Bryn, in increments. The way Margaret laid it out, there is also a $100,000 set-aside for Sophia and a $150,000 set-aside fund for any future children of Garrett's. The fourth property. Walt paused. He looked at my mother. The fourth property is this house. Patricia. The house you are sitting in right now. The house you have been telling the family you and Glenn own. Margaret bought this house outright. For cash. In 2003. When you were going through your first hospitalization, and Glenn was about to lose his job at the supply company. Margaret never told you. She let you live here. She let you believe what you wanted to believe. She knew you would brag. She let you brag. She paid the property taxes through an LLC named Apex Holdings LLC for 21 years. The bills you and Glenn have been paying to a company called Carolina Private Trust were going to a P.O. box in Cary that Margaret had set up to make it look like a private mortgage. Carolina Private Trust was Margaret. There is no mortgage on this house. There never was. There is a deed. The deed transferred to the trust in April 2023. The beneficiary of the trust on this house is Bryn, with a lifetime occupancy clause for you and Glenn, contingent on you not challenging the trust. The room did not look at me. The room looked at my mother. My mother's face did a thing I had never seen it do. The wounded matriarch mask simply fell off, and underneath was raw panic. The kingdom she ruled. The story she had told for 22 years, at every family Thanksgiving and every casual lunch with the church ladies about the colonial in Apex she and Glenn had worked so hard for, had just been handed in a stapled document with 3 signatures to the daughter she had told to stay home and water the plants. What happened next is the part people always hope will be an apology. And it never is. And I want you braced for that the way I wish I had been. My mother did not apologize. She cycled through everything else first. She wept loud and sudden. Vite. You, Margaret. Margaret was not in her right mind at the end. She was on medication. She was you, manipulated her, Walt said. Very mildly. Patricia. Margaret was sharp until 10 days before she passed. She drafted this on April 14th. 2023. 15 months before her stroke. Her doctor was there. Her attorney was there. Imani was there. 2 attorneys have reviewed the document since, for 2 different family members who tried to discredit it. Both attorneys have agreed it is ironclad. It stands. My mother turned, the way she always turned, to my father. Glenn. Are you going to let them do this? This was your mother? This was your inheritance. This was our house. My father lifted his head. For one moment, the same moment Walt had told me would come. The moment Margaret had told me in her letter to wait for my father looked at me, and his mouth opened. Roxy, he said softly. Mama knew about the casino. She told me at Easter the year before she died. She told me she had taken steps. She told me Walt would handle it when the time came. She told me to stay out of it. He paused. He looked at Walt, and I did what she said. Pup. I stayed out of it. I am sorry. Brynje. I am so sorry. My mother's head snapped toward him. The look she gave him was 30 years old. The look that had ended every argument they had ever had since 1995. My father met her eyes. For 3 seconds. Longer than I had ever seen him meet her eyes. He held the look. Then he looked back down at his hands. But he did not take it back. He did not say I didn't mean that. Roxy. He just stopped talking. That was my father's whole apology. It was small. It was 30 years late. It was real. And I took it. Caitlin began to cry. Not Caitlin's Instagram cry, which I had seen many times. A different cry. A 27-year-old woman cry. In the cardigan her sister had paid for. With her husband 3 feet from her looking at the floor. Bryn. She said, I didn't know about the school. I thought Tyler's parents, I said. Caitlin. You knew about Cabo? You knew about Costa Rica. You knew about the IVF. You knew about Helix. Do not pretend you didn't know about the school. You and I are not going to start that conversation today. Tyler said nothing. Tyler had not said one word in the entire 40 minutes. Tyler picked up his jacket from the arm of the love seat. Tyler said, quietly, Caitlin, I'm going to the car. He walked out the front door. He did not say goodbye. He did not look at Caitlin. The marriage was over in that 12-second walk to the gray Tesla. And Caitlin knew it. Because she let out a sound I had never heard a person make. Aunt Sherry stood up. Bryn, I owe you an apology. To you. And to the room. I sent you a text on Wednesday that I am ashamed of. I read the page on Friday. I have spent 48 hours reading it. I am so sorry. I should have asked questions 20 years ago. I am Roxanne's sister. I should have known. I am going home now. Garrett. Will you and Mackenzie walk me to my car? Garrett stood up. Mackenzie picked up Sophia. Sherry hugged me on her way past my chair. Sherry whispered, Your grandmother is dancing right now. You know that. Right. I nodded. Sherry left. Garrett and Mackenzie followed. I stood up slowly. I picked up the single page. I folded it back into the navy tote. I left the trust document on the coffee table for my mother to look at after we were gone. Walt had brought a second copy. An extra one we had printed Saturday at his rancher in Pinehurst. Specifically so she could read it after I was no longer in the room and could not be screamed at. I reached into the side pocket of the tote and took out something I had carried with me since Monday afternoon. It was a small, clear Ziploc bag. Inside it was a piece of my own credit card. I had taken a pair of kitchen shears to the frozen American Express card on Tuesday night and cut it in half. I had kept the half with the gold strip. I laid the half card on the coffee table next to the trust document. Mama, the next family vacation is on you. Or on Caitlin. Or on no one. I am done. My mother did not answer. My mother did not look at me. My mother was staring at the trust document. I do not know if she was reading it. I do not think she was. Walt stood up slowly. He picked up his cane. He picked up the original portfolio. Patricia. Glenn. We are going to leave now. Brynje. Walk me out. Sweetheart. I walked out of my parents' living room with my grandfather. Through the front door of a house I had just learned belonged to me. Into the May afternoon. The peonies were still on the coffee table behind us. The trust document and the half card were beside them. I pulled the door shut softly with my good hand. Slamming it would have meant I still wanted something from the people on the other side of it. I did not. The account was closed. Here is how it settled. Because I know you want to know. The trust held. My mother called 4 lawyers in June. All 4 told her the same thing. Constance Yee had built the document like a vault. The threat stopped quietly by the 4th of July. My parents still live in the Apex house. The lifetime occupancy is real. The trust pays the property taxes through Apex Holdings LLC. The same way Margaret had been doing it since 2003. I am not in the business of putting a quiet old man and a broken woman out on the street. Whatever her silences cost me. But Caesar's Cherokee no longer runs on my margin. My mother took a part-time job at a Hallmark store in the Beaver Creek Commons shopping center in May. $13 an hour. 20 hours a week. She has told the church ladies it is to stay social. She has told no one it is because the slot machines do not extend store credit. Caitlin and Tyler separated in late June. Tyler moved back in with his parents in Cary. The full picture of the disguised charges came out during the separation talks. And Tyler's parents, who I had never disliked, who had always been kind to me at Christmas, drove to my condo on a Saturday in July with a homemade peach pie and an apology. Mrs. Hale had cried in my kitchen. She had not known about the boys' tuition. She had not known about Cabo. She had not known about anything. I told her I knew she had not known. I let her cry. I gave her some of Walt's iced tea. Caitlin took a job at the Lululemon at Crabtree Valley Mall in July. She makes $15 an hour, plus commission. She still has the cardigan. But she sold the Range Rover in August when the lease ended and bought a used Toyota Camry. She and I have not spoken since June. She sent me one text in September. It said only, "Where did it all go?" I sent her the same single page I had laid on the coffee table. She did not reply. She has not asked again. My father calls me every other Sunday afternoon. Always at 4. Always from the truck, on the way back from the Lowe's Garden Center where he buys the soil for my mother's tomato plants. He always asks about Mason first. We talk for 15 minutes. He always says, "Brynje, I love you." Before he hangs up, I have started saying it back. It took me 4 Sundays to be ready to. Garrett and Mackenzie come to my condo for dinner every other Sunday too. With Sophia, who has decided that Mason is hers. Aunt Sherry and Uncle Phil join them on the 5th Sunday. Sherry brings the dessert. Phil brings the coffee. We do not talk about my mother. Walt moved out of his Pinehurst rancher in October. He sold it for $231,000 to a young couple with twin girls who reminded him of me at 7. Walt used some of the proceeds to buy a small 2-bedroom condo 6 minutes from mine, in the same Glenwood South neighborhood. On the 3rd floor of a building with an elevator and a doorman. He comes to my condo every Sunday for dinner and brings the leather portfolio every single time and sets it on the bookshelf in my living room and says, in case anybody forgets, "The beach house in Emerald Isle is mine now." I spent 2 weeks there in August with Mason and a stack of books I had been promising myself I would read since 2018. I slept 11 hours a night for the first week. Walt drove down for the second week. We ate boiled shrimp on the back deck and watched the sky turn pink over the Sound. He said, on the last night before we drove back, "Brynje." Margaret would have loved this part. The part where you finally let yourself sit still. If there is one thing I learned from a desk phone at WakeMed and a leather portfolio and 90 seconds on a banking app on a Monday afternoon in May, it is this. The people who tell you that you are so good at staying home are usually the people who have never wanted to take you anywhere. The people who praise your flexibility are usually the people who have decided you do not get to bend toward your own life. And being the one with no kids does not make you the one with no life. It makes you the one whose life is your own, provided you are willing. Eventually, on a Tuesday afternoon in the office of an attorney named Constance Yee, to claim it, if you are watching this, and you have been quietly designated as the family backup plan, the family ATM, or the family babysitter, please remember that the words quietly designated are not the same as freely chosen. You were assigned. You can unassign yourself. You can do it in 90 seconds with a banking app, a clear head, and the willingness to hang up on a call you have been answering for too many years. That is my story. 7 years. F folder. And a phone call that ended a vacation and started a life. If this story reminded you of someone, share it with them. If it reminded you of yourself, take it as your sign. Pull one statement tonight. Read it like it does not belong to you. Find one number you have not added up. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. And tell me the family role you were assigned that you never asked for. I read every one of them. From a condo in downtown Raleigh, with my black cat on my lap, and a grandfather coming to Sunday dinner. I am Bryn Mercer. And the only thing I ever needed, in the end, was the 81-year-old man who drove 44 minutes through the Sunday traffic with a folder on the seat beside him and walked into his daughter-in-law's living room and said, "Please." For years, I lived like the spare key. Everyone remembered only when they were locked out. I was useful, reliable, easy to reach, and easy to leave behind. Every transfer, every booking, every quiet favor became another line in a system log I refused to read. I kept telling myself I was helping the family stay together. When the truth was simpler and harder, I was funding a version of togetherness that only worked when I disappeared from it. That week taught me that data can be kinder than denial. Numbers do not flatter you, guilt you, or ask you to ignore what happened. They simply show the pattern. And once you see the pattern, you have a responsibility to stop feeding it. Being flexible should never mean being disposable. Being generous should never mean giving people access to your life while they deny you a seat in it. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is freeze the card, close the account, and finally stop paying for a family role you never agreed to play. Author Nguyen Van Chien.